when I was 6 years old, I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area with my mom and dad and my brother. He's older. And at that time, living in the Bay Area in San Francisco in the 1970s, it was like a massive time of creativity. It was like an explosion of creativity. And I was a complete TV addict at that age already. You know, 70s kid, you're watching TV, end of story. But what was on TV, especially in the cartoon world, it was like psychedelic. It was like uber creative. So I was like really indoctrinated into this like creative, dynamic kind of space, just like my first experience with like media, you know, being in the Bay Area at that time. You know, we would go to the Exploratorium in San Francisco, which was like this crazy museum that had all these different experimental things going on. So I have this very strong vision of driving over the San Francisco Bay Bridge and listening to Stevie Wonder and going to the Exploratorium, and, you know, everything just felt like rainbow colored and bright, you know? And my brother and I, actually my cousin, my cousin that was a younger cousin and myself, we would make up these characters. My cousin lived in Northern California in this town, Crescent City, and we go there like for family vacations. And the entire time we would just make up, we had actually like a whole set of characters, and we actually made a little book. And that's what we would spend our time doing. So one of them was called Burpaderp. Another one was Slow Motion John. He just talked in slow motion. Another one was Sheriff Shirako. And we had like literally, we would just add to this little book of characters and we would act them out. So there was like lots of fantasy, playing, make-believe, just kind of always, you know, in our lives at home and just around us in general, you know. From my mom tells me, and I remember, like, from the youngest age, always mimicking stuff that was on TV or like on the radio. So if there's like a radio ad or a television commercial, I would try and recreate it. You know, I would do little song and dance routines to the theme songs of the TV shows that were on at the time. So like I was definitely like, my biggest fantasy was to be able to step inside the TV, you know? There was like I don't know if it was healthy or it sounds very unhealthy actually. I think about it like I was glued to the TV, but I was. And my whole thing was wanting to like jump inside of it and live in those little worlds, you know? Yeah. So about my parents and kind of the relationship with them as a kid in terms of like being an artist and stuff, we did move around a lot as a kid. We lived out of the country a few times. That's kind of a different story, but they were my dad it was again, classic 70s scenario, dad working all the time. Not, you know, he wasn't absent, but he was working all the time, and my mom was working part-time and all that. But they definitely were encouraging of anything that like we were interested in, which for me, it was always wanting to do summer school drama, you know, summer school art class, you know, dance class. So I was always like just akin to those things, the origin of which I'm not so sure, but it was absolutely like, it wasn't that I wanted to go to a camp about math or science. It was entirely about, I want to do the dance camp. I want to do the drama camp. I want to do the drawing. And yeah, they were not, you know, they were always sort of like, they were open-minded. They were open-minded about those things. So there was never like a clamp down of like, you shouldn't be doing this. It's like, oh, that's where you want to go, then go in that. And I think my dad was, God rest his soul, my dad was a tortured soul in so much that he was of the generation that had to go the pathway of what you do, but he was a tortured artist, I'm convinced, and really was like a poet, could have been a painter. And so like there was a lot of, from that standpoint, I was raised with a very emotionally a volatile, emotional father, which wasn't wasn't the stereotype. And he was very expressive. And so there was a lot of expression within the family, but again, so I think there wasn't this like disdain for expressing yourself. The other thing about being a kid growing up in California in the 1970s was that the westernized ideal of beauty, or what we saw on TV and film and in magazines, was a very, white-centric person. And me being of ethnicity, Middle Eastern descent, and feeling completely unsatisfied with how I looked, did not want to look how I looked, would watch, whatever Charlie's Angels or whatever the show was, and I wanted nothing more than to have blonde hair and blue eyes, long straight blonde hair, blue eyes. Marsha Brady. I was fixated. I was obsessed with Marsha Brady. I wanted to be Marsha Brady. I wanted to have that long straight hair. And, I guess someone might go, God, you're obsessed with the external, right? But it's our culture. It's like how you gain approval. It's how you gain entry, especially in those times, right? So it was a very confusing thing for me and my dad had an accent. So there was a whole element of feeling like other and not part of this thing that is, the kind of mainstream. And so from the standpoint, from a very early age, and again, growing up in California, even still more, Cheryl Tiegs was the Christy Brinkley, like all of the, kind of like what was idealized as beauty or acceptable was this kind of one standard. And even if it was like a brown-haired, brown-eyed version of it, it was still a very like Americanized, version, not with like a distinct nose or something like curly hair, things like that. So I was, especially in junior high and high school, it was like in fact, my hair has some blonde. I think I just did it again. I would like squeeze lemon juice into my hair. I wanted it blonde. I would sit in the sun to get it lighter. I actually would push my nose up, and I still have a little crease actually in my nose because I wanted a little button nose. Like I wanted not my nose. So I would literally like push my nose up and do little nose push-ups. Like I would literally do that. And literally, yes, I have a crease in my nose from doing that. I would straighten my hair to and again, now we're talking feathering your hairs in style. And I'm like, like literally like pulling it fucking straight. Like that's victory, And if it's raining, oh my God, and like pulling on it, tugging, like just that obsession. And, so I was already like positioned in a situation where I had a lot of self-esteem issues around, physical things. And then this is going back now to fourth grade, but it's sort of like, I laugh about it because it's like, yeah, this sort of like set me up in that mindset as I auditioned for The Wizard of Oz. And of course I wanted to be Dorothy, who didn't want to be Dorothy, and, Dorothy was cast and it was this pristine, nothing against that person, but they were this pristine, like perfect specimen. And, I was casted as a munchkin, one of the munchkins. And, I was wearing like this, lime green pants. My hair's like frizzed out. And I'm like, and there, that was like, oh, that's my destiny. I'm not going to be Dorothy. Like, that's not going to happen for me. What that represents, you know what I mean? So yeah, that carried over into my adulthood and probably has still, I know, rears up now, but it carried over in a big way, especially when I went to LA and started delving into the acting world there. So I spent a lot of my time in my preteen years, I was writing, and even in those teen years, I was doing a lot of my own writing. I was doing a lot of stuff in my diary and things like that. I mean, when I was in junior high, I auditioned for, this plays that were happening, and I'd have a little role here and there. And high school, same thing. But my sort of creative world was very internal and personal and tortured. I remember I would listen a lot to it. That's when nature started making its way into my world, and that I kind of I would listen a lot to oh my God, even in the quietest moments, Supertramp. Yeah, and they had some song, who was the other band? Supertramp and ELO, Electric Light Orchestra. Now we're talking junior high. I Want You to Want Me, those guys. Yeah, so I was very much even though I was never a musician or a singer, music was a huge part of, kind of that, art, expression, listening, escape, not so much TV as much at that point still, but music started kind of infiltrating into my influence. So yeah, that kind of, that I'm going to do it, I'm going to make it thing that I think it absolutely stems from feeling like an outsider, not so much within my family, but externally, always feeling like the outsider, feeling like you have to go extra steps. I remember, I mean, for whatever it's worth, in junior high, starting to move into the space of being the goofball, the funny, the trying to be the funny one for acceptance. That was a very definitive, distinctive, it was that's something I can try and get acceptance by being funny and fun-loving, and I'll try anything, I'll do anything, dare me to. I was very much like a daredevil, oh, you want me to drop my pants in front of the pizza parlor? I'll do it. That's kind of was the exchange to get acceptance, and I think from the performance acting place, it stems from that same thing, acceptance, acknowledgement, validation, being special, wanting to be special, wanting to be, not just, that sounds not like a munchkin in the crowd, but I feel like a lot of that came from just feeling, yeah, and there was definitely some they'd make fun of my nose, make fun of my name, it's I'm going to show them, that kind of thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a really funny thing. When I was in junior high, we had this assignment of career day, there was a career day thing, what are you going to and it was two things for me. It was, I wanted to be an actor and a forest ranger. And the forest rangers, because I was always just somehow, that's a whole other topic, right? But really passionate about nature. And so this acting thing was embedded very early. And then in high school, I mean, honestly, I was taking acting class, my drama class, and trying to get in the plays. They were all musicals and I didn't sing, so I never really got into any of those. So that made me feel even more and then I was chasing boys and doing all that stuff. Okay. I was running around sneaking alcohol. I was doing all that. I got, in that little world, right? But when did I get really serious was when I got out of high school. I started taking more professional acting classes and started feeling like I was being seen individually as someone rather than, that this that I could find a way to be myself and express myself within this world. And I didn't have to, I was starting to realize, I didn't have to be like, again, and this feels so, I guess, petty, but, the girl that was always the lead in the high school plays was this certain particular type. And so that was still like the message I was getting. And not that person wasn't particularly talented or anything. It was just that was like what I kept focusing on and seeing as that's the only way you're gonna, move. But when I started to get into, in San Francisco, take professional acting classes, and that especially in San Francisco, and this was like in the late 80s, early 90s, San Francisco, this was pre.com. This was like San Francisco was really artsy, really edgy, really raw, really gritty. And so I completely dove into that, like gritty, edgy, raw, like I can finally like let that part of myself be expressed. And so, I was like wearing black every day, painting my walls black, listening to the Smiths, Peter Murphy, smoking cigarettes, painting, portraits of Beatles. I don't know. It was just like in this and my acting class at that time was like, really, I had no idea that's really what acting was about either, I hadn't had the education of like, what's it really about? And this class was just raw, and people were like screaming and crying and rolling on the ground and practically fucking, it was like, what? Like, what the fuck? But it was like a huge awakening of, oh my God, I can do this? Like, I can actually like get to finally have permission to, express my rage and my pain and all that stuff, along with all the other fun stuff. But that was like when I got that, I was like, ooh, this is like, now I'm addicted to the, like, this is like, this is delicious, yummy, like raw and, just, meaty. Like that was like at my core, what I was always like craving, but hadn't been exposed to me yet, hadn't been exposed. My experience as an actress in my 20s, both in San Francisco and in LA, I was very much oriented towards the art of it, like reading plays, one play after the next, after the next, after doing play after the next, after the next. Of course, wanting to like break into, the film and television, of course. But yeah, I mean, as far as the adversity around it, I mean, there's the typical adversity that everyone, trying to break in and this and that. And I did have some big opportunities early on. But yeah, the one thing that was something that was a, like a, one of those, was looking for an agent, already had a few agents, but was looking to move up like to a next level. And so, I had some material that I'd already, some films I'd already done, and met with this agent, and he was a very nice man, but he was quick to say, and this was the time of Friends, this was like that era, was like, yeah, you know what, they're just not looking for your type. Like your type is not, they're looking for, what's on Friends. And that like was like, that just kind of like went, and it made me, and like when I think about it now, it makes me kind of feel like some rage even, like, you know what I mean? Like, what? I'm just, because he actually liked my work, but it was like just so again, I was always feeling like my physicality wasn't matching up to anything that the market or the business wanted. Again, during this time frame of, now we're talking 90s. Yeah, we're talking in the 90s, we still hadn't like, certainly way different now. But at that time frame, there had not been this like awareness about like, diversity, and not only diversity ethnically, but diversity of all kinds, diversity of look, it's kind of standardized. I remember like the haircut you had to get was the Rachel haircut, for every commercial, like if you wanted to go out for commercials, you had to have a very specific haircut. Like that's the haircut you had to have. And then I do remember a manager who was a big manager, and he kind of pegged it. He's like, well, you're just ethnically non-specific. And I was like, well, I guess that's, what does that mean? So it was hard for me to like, and I think I felt like even hard to like get auditions to like fit me in a spot in some way. And that shifted after 9/11, quite honestly. So at the time, just right post 9/11, in LA, I should sort of rewind for a second and say that during this whole time leading up to kind of the 9/11 timeframe, I had changed my last name a few times because in my attempt to try and fit in, try and make myself marketable, I had an Anglo last name at one point. I had an Italian last name at one point. So I had this revelatory moment when I went into this movie theater. There was this film called West Beirut, and it was all Lebanese. It was a Lebanese film, and I had never seen part of my ethnicity on screen before. Like I'd never seen it. And so it was this very I was crying through the whole thing. And, I went home and I called my dad and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back to my last name. And, I think he was happy about that. And so, there was kind of like finally like, okay, I felt like some validation, like I could embrace, my name and how I looked, and oh my God, those people, they kind of look like me, like that's so weird. So 9/11 happened, and I started getting a lot of auditions. Mainly for what I like to call the devastated Middle Eastern mother parts. So the devastated Middle Eastern mother. And that was an interesting thing to sort of all of a sudden be more in demand, I guess, if you will, because of that. And I did get work, and I learned the accent, and I had to speak Arabic in some cases. And so that was a very, interesting kind of like turn. And the other thing I would say, like on the kind of like, I guess what you do with that is what I did with that was like, okay, that's one thing going on over here, but I'm going to create my own art. Like because apparently that's how I'm seen over there. And apparently I can't really change that, but I can change, what I do, and what I create. And so I was doing, again, when I was there, I did a lot of political theater and stuff like that. But I created my own one-person show about saving a tree, like an environmentally themed show. And, it was kind of like, and I still feel very strongly about like empowering yourself by creating your own work, because then you can, first of all, be empowered, but you can tell your stories in a way that maybe aren't already out there. So, fun stuff. It was interesting, like it when you get put in a position where all of a sudden my eyes opened up to the idea of stereotyping, like even more so. I already knew it existed, but like being thrust into, I remember going on audition. This is actually, going on audition, and it was for a very like standard, it was like for a reporter. It was something like that. And it was during this time frame when I was constantly like, it was like my agent, who I love, she's like, I'm sorry, it's I'm like, it's okay, I understand, not your, And so it was like, but for a reporter, oh my God. And there was a woman, Asian American woman, who was going in for it. And she said to me, she goes, oh my gosh, I'm finally going out for something that's not the nail salon, owner. And I said, oh my gosh, you too. I'm the Middle Eastern terrorist wife. You're the nail salon owner. You know, and we were both like, and it was just like this like moment of like, there you have it, you know? Can we just be a reporter? And I just remembered that. But yeah, it was upset. I mean, obviously 9/11 was devastating on every level, and devastating when you know, then the culture from which you come is, you know, part of it, or, you know, in the part of the story. And so there was a lot of kind of like doing battle with that as well on a personal level, and trying to understand more. And but the flip side is that, you know, I've learned that, and some of the, you know, when it comes to acting, like the good stuff, to me, it's all about the people. And so, you know, throughout all those different, you know, 20s and the, like, you know, Friends era and whatever, and this era, you know, I was always doing like play after play after play, or project after project. And I can honestly say, with the exception of one time, did I not have like the most amazing experience working with the people that I got to work with, and the, you know, people that are best friends and like family to me to this day. So for me, the thing that is the like one of the food, the like good stuff, the nurturing stuff, the like yummy stuff, is the people you get to work with in this business. Like, you know, I know I was going to get this business gets a rep, but I have had just the most like incredible experience working with the most sensitive, compassionate, funny, hilarious, creative people. And that like is really always the most fun, exciting thing. But, you know, getting back to this idea is like, where does this all come from? Like, where's the germ? What's the thing that like germinates the desire to keep going in the business and keep creating? And I feel like it's like a lifeline. Like, I feel like the times that I've tried to go, I can't fucking do this anymore. Like, I'm just gonna go and like work at a pet store. Nothing wrong with working at a pet store, but it's my other passion. But you know, I'm gonna cut that out of my life or whatever. It's like a lifeline. There is something in there that is like a need to tell stories, a need to create, a need to express, and whatever form that takes, even. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be through that, could be through writing. And I, you know, went through a difficult period a couple years ago where the only thing that was like tangible, palpable, that was gave me a shred of like hope was my ability to write, and then my ability to still teach. But going through this like personal challenge, like writing about it was the most healing, you know, brought the healing and the revelation of understanding, like spewing it out on the paper and then going, oh, okay. And then taking that and go, what if I made a show about that? What if you know, other people are going through that kind of thing. So I'm all about that too. I mean, I'm working on a show now, Miss Ethnic Non-Specific, and it's about being ethnically non-specific. And it's like, if in doing that someone goes, oh my God, I can relate to that. That is, to me, like, okay, of service, and hopefully it's entertaining and, you know, people can relate to it. But, so, yeah. The question of, you know, the deeper level of art and acting, like, when did that revelation happen where it wasn't just like play pretend and, you know, this externalized thing, that it's like far deeper than that. I would say the first like illumination was like in the San Francisco acting class, where it was, you know, people were, you know, for me, I was pretty shut down emotionally, because I was like, I need protection, right? Like, I was so vulnerable that I had this wall. And I remember this exercise and people were crying in that class, like, you know, like raging. And I was like, wow, you know, and I remember like, I was like so blocked. And I started speaking, and then my teacher at that time was like, you know, just start, you know, speaking do this imaginary monologue to someone that you know, want to address, you know, to really express yourself to. And it strangely came out, and I was doing my imaginary monologue to society. I was basically raging at society, and in particular, women's magazine covers that depict women in a certain way that then makes women feel less than and have all kinds of issues, including eating disorders, of which I had one when I was a teenager. So it like got all wrapped in this thing, and I was like, fuck, I just like was like finally like exposing that I had an eating disorder, exposing my anger towards society, and I like, broke down, burst out, crying, screaming, raging, and that once you have that as an actor, you don't go back. Like once that thing gets cracked, that nut gets cracked, you're like, woo! You're like, let it roll, let it flow. Like I just want to keep exploring all that we can express. And my belief is that we're an inch away from being a prostitute or a priest. I mean, we have it all. And it's been some of our, our feelings, our emotions are like nurtured and allowed to come out. And for some of us, it's like tamped down. And, my experience as an actor has been, the exciting thing is pouring water on those things that have been tamped down and letting them finally germinate and grow so that I can be my fully expressed person in this art form. Because if we're going to portray the human experience, which is the job to truthfully portray the human experience, the job of the actor, then you have to have the ability to access any one of those paint colors, on the spectrum of, paint colors, like the really, really sharp color here and everything in between. And so it takes a constant like discipline of digging in and being willing to go into an area that's like really been blocked off and shaded off and compartmentalized and start to like seduce it out and allow it to come nurture it to come out. That is exciting. That's like my favorite thing about working with my students, and I know we'll talk about teaching, is when I can start to see like, oh, this is an area where you can finally have your voice and find your freedom. And so for me, it's been a process, and then that continued in other acting classes, in particular the studio that I teach for now, the Actors Lab, and my mentor JD Lewis. He was all about like it's just you in these circumstances, and really finding my big area was standing up and holding my power and having my power and standing up for myself, and he just worked with me on that week after week until he just kept calling that card until it finally was like, I did it. And then once you step into that, you go, I'm never going back. I know what it feels like to stand up for myself. And so that's really, to me, the most exciting thing about working with actors is when I see someone that is cut off or blocked or minimalized. It's like, no, we want to see the full expression of who you are, every part of you. And don't be afraid or ashamed of any part of you. That's exciting. And shouldn't we all be able to fully express ourselves, every part, and be celebrated and accepted? And don't hide what people, people come in and it's like, I don't want them to see that part, the messy part. No, I want to see the fucking messy part. Like, I want to see that. That's where we're all at. We're all the same. Like, we are all the same. Let's see it, because we're all relating to it. You just said what I wanted, what I was thinking, you know what I mean? So that, like, and for me, once that exploration started, it was like, I'm on. Like that, now I'm even more excited about it. Now this is like really what I want to do. This is like, yeah, because I'm a deep feeler thinker. I'm like, oh, yeah, I want that, My experience where you finally come into a place of self-acceptance, and where self-acceptance, like radical self-acceptance, where you're like, this is who I am, this is my voice, this is how I express. It, I think, is something that for some people naturally happens very early on. I do. I think I come across some actors and some artists that are like really self-realized and don't have any apology and are fully in touch with all of it. And then there's people like myself that it took a long time to get there. And I think for me, it was a combination of like having someone I trusted, as my mentor, someone that I trusted, and also repetition. Like the the repetition of the doing it and the keep coming back and keep lifting the weight and keep doing it, keep expressing, keep digging, keep pulling the layers of the onion and seeing that, I'm getting, it's okay that I am like that. No, you're celebrated. No, you're really being authentically yourself and people are like applauding and going, yeah, we love that. Oh, it's okay for me to come out and just be who I am and without apology. And that's huge. And I think for some of us, it takes more time because of all the stuff, conditioning and culture and society and all the messages we continue, the stories we tell. And then one day after that positive reinforcement, you're, oh, no, it's okay. Like and again, it happened late for me. I'm not going to lie. Like it took, into my 40s pretty much to get into really owning my voice, expressing it how I truthfully feel, express it authentically. It took me some time, but I do think it takes repetition of doing, the discipline of being willing to like go into the place that you keep avoiding, because when you ignore that, you're not still fully all attached. And you can't be really speaking from that full, truthful place. Because one analogy, I'll just always think of this, I always visualize this. Like, I think, kids, I think that intuitively, I think that everyone is born an artist. I think everyone is born with an artistic soul, we want to create. Human beings want to create. It's the way that we do things. And I think that we get squashed and stepped on and made fun of and disregarded and not supported. And so this baby that has all these like octopus tentacles, that's always how I imagine like an octopus and all these tentacles like this, like super creative, things, babies are like everywhere, right? And then like it gets cut off, and you have this like unit at the end of the day as an adult. And so it's like my mandate to myself, my like mission is with the actors that I work, it's like, let's reattach that. Let's get all those parts reattached so you can be fully able to have everything that you need to create whatever you want to create with no limitation.
Nice.
Yeah, so that period, around 2004, 2005, that's when I really started embracing, I'd been doing I wrote this poetry performance show with someone that was really wild and creative. And then I was really determined to start to look at activism through art. And because I've always been an environmental activist as well, and finding ways to like merge those two. So I created this one-person show. I think I mentioned it, and it was really, I remember the first night, like going, why the fuck am I, like, I'm going out on stage for like 45 minutes by myself. Who do I think I am? Why? Who would want to listen? But this was the revelation, and this is what I say to everyone about like, especially like storytelling. It's that the message is bigger than me. Whatever about me, my message is bigger than me. And so when I kept like, I need to tell the story of these the environmental racism, like I need to tell that story because I don't think people know about, that's bigger than me. I need to tell the story about, clear cutting, that's bigger than me. And so the telling of the story surpasses the ego and all that stuff. And so that was like a big revelatory thing for me at that time. And it just made me more like impassioned to create my own work. I also did another like activism through art show. Again, my mentor wrote a play. It was like an anti-war play. We did it at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. It was called America. And it was fucking amazing. But we were like protesting in the streets of Edinburgh. It was during the war. And part of the story of the play was that we were on a hunger strike. And so my character was, I had to be naked on stage. Let me just say that. I had to be naked on stage, entirely naked on stage, and have it be breaking down crying, and here I am like in front of these anyway, that was interesting. I let's say that was like a growing experience. I had to watch my beer intake or whatever, but but then how I got into the teaching, strangely from actually, when I first went to LA, even with my first studio that I studied at, the teacher there had asked me to be a teacher, and I was like, no, hell no. I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. And then friends would ask me, like, hey, can you coach me on this? And, can you direct me in that? Like, it's just this sort of thing that sort of naturally happened. And then my teacher at the studio, again, that I teach for now, JD, he said, I think you'd be a really amazing teacher. And I was like, I think I'm kind of ready for it, because it was like, I was ready to take all that stuff, all those lessons learned and like, all the pounding the pavement, all the lessons and all, don't do this because I did that. And trust me, you don't want to do that. Do this instead. That's a lot of where I come at it from. Like, no, please don't do that. I did that. Do this. And so that was exciting to me to go like, you know what? I can take all that stuff that was really challenging for me, the wrong paths I took, decisions I made, and like take that and help actors like go on a positive path. Everyone's going to still have their roadblocks, but and so then when I moved up here to Portland, Oregon, the opportunity happened for us to open a studio here, and so then I just dove in like full bore in teaching, and I can't tell you how much I love it. I just love it, and I think because it's so much of it comes out of seeing the potential in everyone. Like I can't not see great, potential in everyone. And so you see the potential, but sometimes people don't see it in themselves. And that's exciting to go, no. Oh my gosh, we're going to get you where you want to go. There's always a way. There's always a way. That's the benefit of growing older is you learn, you know what? That didn't work. But you know what? I'm going to try that. And you know what? That worked. And that's my process even in teaching. Like there's always a way, there is. And so there's always a solution. And I want people to live to their potential and, have their heart's desire. And that super motivates me. Yeah, that it is the driving force for me as a teacher is that I want everyone to fulfill their dreams, as cornball as that sounds, but and how that happens is through accepting, embracing, and saying, I'm enough as I am. I'm enough. I am enough. And I sometimes will send, I always give that note, you are enough. And you are enough. And especially in acting, when people feel that they're not enough, they start overcompensating and then they start pushing and then it's forced and then it's not authentic. And so this striving, circling back to my own self, my own journey of radical self-acceptance of going, I'm enough. I don't need to entertain anyone. I don't need to, have a button nose. I can be this as is, and that's enough. And so my goal with actors, with artists is you are enough, and you just sitting there looking at me is compelling because there's so much going on with all of us, and that's more compelling than doing a little, a little spritz and spray, whatever about that. Let's get down and dirty and who the fuck are you? And that's when I see students start to embrace and get it and go, oh, okay. And in their work, it's you're just you don't need anything else. I say, I don't want pickles, mustard, relish, onion. I don't want, any of it. I just want a plain, whoever you are sandwich. You don't need to put any extra mayo on that. Done. We're good. I like to use the term, don't be an actor, be a human. I say it all the time. Don't be a freaking actor with a capital. Just be a human. having an experience. Sorry, I just had to add that because I say it's not a scene, it's not a monologue. It's just we're just like walking by and we're peeking in on this thing that's happening, and we're gonna keep walking. You just keep going with yourself over there.
Nice.
I look at it as expressing the human experience, as storytelling, as, you know, we are acting. To me is like we are witness to the human condition in all of its different ways, whether that's someone that's, you know, in the middle of the battlefield with their, you know, brothers in arms, or you know, someone holding their baby for the first time. It's like, to me, acting is portraying what it is to be human and the experience of our, you know, humanity on this planet. And through that, hopefully, we start to feel more connected, and we start to have empathy and understanding, and also feel maybe we don't have so much shame about our own experience, because now we understand that we're not alone in that experience. And that's the deeper thing. And we do this thing, it makes me like, I won't cry, no. We do this thing called Fright Night at our studio. I just bring it up because it's a night where we challenge people to do things that's outside of their comfort zone. And it can take on all kinds of things. Sometimes they'll do stand-up comedy, they'll do a song and dance, they'll read poetry, sometimes people reveal really personal things. And every single time, always, there's someone that's like, oh my God, that's my experience too. And now I don't feel so alone around it. So to me, it's about connection, and it's about empathy and understanding that we're all collectively really going through kind of the same things, just different shades and tones. And so that is the deeper thing, is it's of service in that way, is that we are like trying to hopefully bring enlightenment and healing so that people feel that their experience isn't one that's just solitary and alone. Yeah, it's like the question I ask sometimes when I have new people in class is, what do you want us to know about you, and what do you not want us to know about you? And the not want us to know about you is really powerful, because it's always something that we always go, oh yeah, I can relate to that. Oh yeah, my best friend, now I realize, you know, has that. We're not alone. So the deeper thing for acting, it's not this thing out here. It's like how we connect, how we feel like we can be a part of the human condition and how it's portrayed. And we can see ourselves in that, or learn about other cultures, other points of view that can hopefully bring us a more, you know, into a more unified way about what it is to be human, like music. Yeah, oh, I mean, the good stuff about LA, yeah, bopping around there as a young actress was, it couldn't have been more exciting. I mean, it was like going to Beverly Hills, and oh my gosh, I've seen that on TV, or, you know, down Hollywood Boulevard, or yes, you would see celebrities here and there. So, I mean, there was so much like, you're in the vortex of it. You're like, I'm in the vortex. I'm doing the thing. I'm not like, you know, and it was, I mean, for me, it was a total blast, because anything was icing on the cake, right? Like, it was like, oh my God, this little short film. Yeah. You know, every job was like a huge thing. And so, and plus just, you know, the doing of the work. So, yeah, I mean, it is, you know, it's alive with creative people from all over the world, you know, the friends that you make, but it was, and there was like, you know, something about the struggle that's very romantic. You know, it was like living in my studio apartment and driving a beat up post office Jeep, and, you know, having all these odd jobs, but then you're with all your, you know, comrades there, like doing the same thing. And acting class, everyone's so, you know, passionate and focused. And it was like very romantic in that way. I mean, I have to say it was a very romantic, kind of sexy time. Like, you know, you're just like, anything's possible, and anything is possible. So that kind of anything is possible thing, it keeps you, it definitely kept me going for a very long time. And, yeah, romance, that kind of stuff too. I used to go to the Hollywood Y and, whatever, had a few romances. I had my little routine, the Hollywood Y, the Hollywood Farmers Market, go to my class, study my stuff, go to my crazy, odd jobs. But I had I actually auditioned for, I had some big auditions early on. I auditioned for the Sandra Bullock part in Speed and was on what they call the short list. Obviously, I didn't get it. And I auditioned for Pulp Fiction for the part of the French girl in Pulp Fiction. I auditioned for What's Eating Gilbert Grape. There's a couple other biggies in there. So that was really, I delivered acne medicine to Johnny Depp. I don't know if I should say that, but yeah, I did. He was very sweet. I worked for a few celebrities, did I did the personal assistant thing. Oh, I had this thing with my girlfriends where we had this fake management company. I guess I probably shouldn't say that. It was called Millennium Management. We had this whole phone set up. It's hello, Millennium Management. And we'd get auditions for each other. And we had a fake, no, this wasn't a fake. We had a company we called the Terminators. And we'd do anything from A to Z. And we put flyers under all these businesses. We went throughout Beverly Hills. We put flyers under everyone's, all the offices, and we got jobs. One of my girlfriends was, picking up laundry for someone. I was typing scripts for some film producer. One of my other girlfriends got another gig. We called ourselves the Terminators. So, we were just on the hustle. We were just eat, breathe, drink, acting. We were just in the vortex of it. And that was a blast because it was we're young. Anything's possible, So yeah. I think if anyone has the desire, they must go. They must absolutely go. If anyone has the desire and that dream in that way, they must absolutely go and do it. I've never felt better about my creative life than I do now. I've never felt better. I feel for me, the bliss, the high, the rush comes probably in two forms. One is collaborating with people, whether it's writing together or, performing together. But performing and writing with people that are in it to have fun, and in it for the right reason, and are, positive, respectful, that's when you're just lost in it, when you're lost in the creative process and it's flowing, there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it. There's nothing like that process of being lost in the creative process with someone, whether you're working on an acting scene or whether you're writing together or where you're brainstorming or having this kind of conversation. This is blissful for me, quite frankly, talking about these topics. And yeah, I feel for me right now, I'm just in this thing. I hope it lasts. No, please, no. I'm in this space of as long as I can keep teaching and creating work and the odd audition comes here and there, I'm good. As long as I have the ability to still create and express and tell stories how I want to do it, and whether that's seen by 20 people or however many, it's okay. That feels settled for me. I'm not like that. I mean, I have my moments, don't get me wrong. I have my triggers still. They're you're no. But a lot more able to soothe those little things when they come up. But for me, bliss is teaching, bliss is collaborating and really having fun. And kindness, I want to just make a note, that is the number one value for me, is being kind to people. And hopefully, I don't think you have to be oh my God, you can't be great art and be a kind person. No, you can be a kind person. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means that you're kind and respectful, especially when you're dealing with artists, because we're so vulnerable. Yeah. Okay. My feeling around if someone wants to be an actor, they need to study the craft of acting. Period. And people have natural talent. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, people have natural talent. But it is a craft, and I personally think it's disrespectful when people think that there isn't a craft to it and things to be learned. And one of my biggest is, then people will be like, well, not doing the work. It's all about the work. It's all about the work. It's shoveling dirt. It's lifting the dumbbells. It's doing these weights. To me, it's a disrespect for the profession when someone is not honoring that it is the work that you put in is what makes you an actor. And training is intrinsic to that. And being, yes, in a class with like-minded people and learning from them and having that collaboration, it's imperative. I'm not saying that you're doing it your entire career, but especially at the beginning, it is a learned craft. And so when people are, again, you might have tons of natural talent, absolutely, but there is a process and a craft to it. And so I feel extraordinarily passionate about that. And, just like, I'll give this one anecdote. I was in this acting class, it was in LA years ago. And this actor, young actor, very good looking, and we were rehearsing for something about to go up in class, and he's like, yeah, I don't know, I'm not gonna do class much more. I get auditions all the time, I don't need class. I was like, okay, well, So we go up to do our thing, and it was the teacher at that time was it was adjustment night. So he was like, now do it this way, now do it that way. And that fucking actor couldn't take a note to he couldn't take a note. And the teacher addressed it. I'm like, good luck, dude, go for it. You don't need fucking class, go for it, enjoy. It's like it's an insult to me, So, and there's so much more to it. It's like the learning that happens in a classroom setting. More than that, even if you're a seasoned actor, and I have some seasoned actors that I work with, it's just about showing up at the gym, It's like if you're going to compete in the Olympics, you don't just show up at the basketball court once a week, dribble a couple times, expect to make. No, you've got to be doing your thing and the mental part of it every day to be competitive and also to be able to have a richer experience as an actor. I'd say that's the other thing. You can go in and you can wing it and still have a lot of talent and do it, but to have a richer experience and to be able to do anything, the training is intrinsic to that. Yeah. So, to me, I'm watching the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I love that whole thing because, you see that we see the icing on the cake. And same thing with a really excellent acting performance. We see the icing on the cake. We see all the frou-frou good stuff. We don't see all that stuff. And this is the stuff that's the stuff. This is the work. So yeah. Oh yeah. Strongly about that one. I'll tell you. It's not just because I'm a teacher. I was training my entire time in LA, because I'm like, no, I don't want to be caught with my pants down. I want to keep my muscles and as a teacher, I'm always having to keep steps ahead. So my muscles are always like, ooh, here we go, arm twists. Yeah, okay, so my message to anyone that has the desire or dream or interest in pursuing acting, being an actor, do it. Just do it because it's your heart. It's your heart's desire. There's something in you that's saying this is my path, and you absolutely will not regret it because the learning, the growth, the people, the experiences you will have, whether that's in wherever you live or some big city, it will only add to your life in the most profound and deep ways. You will be a more fulfilled, expanded, and you'll have experiences you could have never had before. So if you have that tiny little pinching little thing that keeps pinching at your heels, like one of my dogs, I can't tell you enough, do not ignore it. Do it. Just do it. And remember to keep your mindset healthy, nourish it with positive thoughts, because that's going to take you the furthest along. And you are enough no matter what. You are enough.